you and Jody are super reliable. I saw you there on Facebook. I didn't see you in the Zoom, but all right. Cool. So we're live. We'll give people some time to kind of wander in and let us know when you get in here. So as you drop in here, give it a thumbs up, give it a smiley face, say hi to Kevin. If you don't know Kevin, I'm going to introduce him in a minute. And I'll start by saying that there is, I don't want to say it's an insidious thing. There is this obsession. Marketers are good at marketing, right? And they're great at changing beliefs. And what has happened is marketers and advertisers that are like top 1%, because it's a very difficult skill. It's not easy to write copy and run traffic successfully. Very few people are really, really good at it. Lucas, do you know Lucas Rashevsky?
I do know Lucas. I've known Lucas for years.
He's the man. He just dropped in and said hello.
Well, Lucas, good to hear from you, man.
Lucas is a great example of somebody that utilizes strategic partnerships, by the way. And so anyways, we've all been sold this water faucet of leads that comes from paid traffic. And I just did my network event, which we had 16 of the top entrepreneurs, business owners here. And the people that have the sturdiest foundations, the most reliable businesses, are the ones that have acquisition channels outside of paid advertising. And so we talk about that a lot. I talk about, like, people say, hey, I'm ready to run ads. Or, hey, I'm ready to do a ton of organic. Who do I reach? I do a ton of direct outreach on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. The first thing that I will do is say, hold, wait a minute. Let's look at the assets that we have around us, right? And I have a network. Probably 90% of the revenue I've ever generated has come from strategic partner and organic and referral. Okay, which is why when Kevin said, hey, we should do a training, I said, absolutely. Because over the last decade, Kevin's on what, over 16 million?
Yeah, just a little over 16 million. Yeah.
16 million in revenue. And whether that number seems huge or not, keep in mind the acquisition cost and the headache and the frustration, right? You did all of this without paid advertising, right? It was with strategic partnerships. Thing about strategic partnerships, you get the best clients. Like, you get the absolute best clients. And what we're going to talk about today is you have a process that you've been able to implement and help other people implement over and over and over again to utilize people in their network and strategic partners. And we're talking, what, an extra 10, 50, 60, 70 grand a month potential in implementing your system for setting up and utilizing strategic partnerships, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Awesome. I am a huge fan of strategic partnership. I like the relational capital. I like having people I can trust. I like that people trust me. And so I'm super excited about this. I would recommend everybody in here, that there are exceptions, but let's say generally speaking, I would put my time and effort and energy into strategic partnership before I put it into paid traffic. I really would, especially with the volatility of the way paid traffic is now. The thing about a strategic partnership, if you and I have this understanding, right? Like, we're close, I trust you, you trust me, I know your people, you know my people, you know what I can do, you know who I can help. It doesn't matter which platform is performing that day, right? The relationships are far more redundant. So I kind of want to pass it off to you. Can you tell us how you look at, so we're talking about strategic partnership. Give us your definition. What is a strategic partnership and how should we look at it, or
Sure.
Contextualize it for this conversation.
This is I just keep things really, really simple, Nick. There's a lot of people have a lot of confusion, misunderstandings around strategic partnership, or you might use the term joint venturing, whatever they use. But in the simplest of terms, all a strategic partnership is, and this is a great example of this right here. You and I coming together, two people coming together, two companies coming together to be able to combine their resources so that together we can get far better results than either one of us could on our own. That's, in the simplest of terms, that's all strategic partnering is. It doesn't mean that you're becoming, legal business partners or anything like that. And it can take on so many different forms, but in the simplest of terms, that's all strategic partnering is.
Awesome. So what do you say to people? And I actually have some questions I really want to dive into, but the first thing that comes up when I think of strategic partnership, right, is how do you, I have my own way of doing it, but how do you address people that want to do it all on their own?
That want to do everything on their own?
Yeah, I know that's what I say, but the people that like, well, if I refer to that person, then that's less business for me. That scarcity mindset.
Sure. Oh my gosh. I'll tell you, versus trying to, and like, you mentioned, that volatility of running ads and all of that kind of stuff. And God forbid, somebody try to do that on their own without versus getting help from somebody who already knows how to do it, been there, been around the block, knows what works, knows what doesn't work, all of that kind of stuff. I am just such a big fan and realize that there's so much that I don't know. I've just been doing my thing, just as we all have. We've been doing our own thing, for how many ever years we've been doing it. And so we've gotten pretty dang good. We've got our 10,000 hours in or what have you. So we're good at the thing that we do, or like what Dan Sullivan likes to call our unique ability, our God-given talents, what we've got. But there's so much that we don't know. And man, oh man, I would much rather, grow my network of people who are just brilliant at what they do, so that then, now, and this idea of that there's not enough money to go around, that is definitely scarcity thinking. I know one of the things that I've been focused on lately is I want to expand my network. And you and I, Nick, we've had conversations around this. Both you and I, we have pretty good networks, but I've been looking at like, how can I expand that even more? And do it in a way that is, in alignment with who I am, who I want to be in this world, how I want this whole business of mine to fit in with my life, all of that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you, doing things together with like-minded entrepreneurs, not everybody out there, but with like-minded entrepreneurs, I'm going to tell you right now, it's way more profitable. It's way more enjoyable. It's way more fulfilling. Because I know you'll agree with me on, Nick, that the relationships that we have with other people, with other entrepreneurs, that is the most valuable asset that we have over our IP, over anything else we got. It's the relationships that we have with people that is the most valuable asset we have.
100% agree. I think we both do stuff like this all the time. And we're actually doing a joint event in Seattle in a couple of weeks. So we'll talk about that near the end and see if anybody's interested. So anybody watching, right? Let's say they're watching, they've been trying to run ads, they've been doing direct outreach, they're growing their Facebook group. Maybe they're staring at the wall because they're paralyzed and don't know what to do. Why consider strategic partnering?
Well, like you said, you alluded to, you get the best clients, because here's the thing with strategic partnering. If you use the example of running ads, running cold traffic, any outreach we can do to people who don't already know us, there is this time window that we have to have in order to be able to create trust with people, in order to get them to invest in whatever it is what we're offering. There's that nurturing period. And depending on what we offer, what the investment is, that period of time, that trust building time is different for every business. But when you use strategic partnering and you have the benefit of an endorsed introduction. So like in this case, there may be people in your world that don't have a clue who this guy Kevin Thompson is and why should I even listen to this guy? And if I reached out to them on my own, that's the skepticism that I met with right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. But people in your world who already know you and you have a relationship with them, you have already built trust with them. And when you introduce them to somebody else and say, hey, here's why you could benefit from what this person has to share with you. Here's why you should listen to what they've got to say. Well, now see, I'm the beneficiary of that endorsed introduction. And because of you, Nic, I now have trust. And we have compressed that time that it takes me to build trust with your folks who may or may not even know who the heck I am, thanks to you. Now it's my job not to screw that up. It's my job to make you look good. It's my job to further your relationship with the people that have come to know and like and trust you and further that. That's my job, is to make sure that I do that on your behalf.
Yeah. I mean, that's the, and I just want to hammer this home because I know the people in this group and I know their struggles and I've talked to most of them. There is you talk about the long game. Mm-hmm. There is tremendous power in me saying, hey, guys, I want you to listen to Kevin Thompson. I did it. I want you to listen to Steve Sims. I want to introduce you to Tony Banta. Like I introduce people and they come back and it makes me look like a superhero because even though I just made the introduction, I still shortcutted them years of headache.
Yes.
Shortcut, and so there's benefit that's not even directly like revenue generating. Very, very powerful long-term strategy just to have these strategic partnerships.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
And there may be something you talk about, but for those, so my reputation up to this point comes primarily from connecting people. Mm-hmm. Before I ever charged for it, before I had a program, the network, I was just connecting people and it just builds a lot of trust, right? So for those that are already natural connectors, like yourself, how long was it before you learned how to monetize that skill?
Well, I mean, the first strategic partnership I ever did, we monetized, and Nic, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I didn't have a clue. I mean, it wasn't until looking back on it later that I was able to put the pieces together and realize what just happened, why we got the results that we got. But my first strategic partnership ever was back in 2003 with Joe Polish. And we made $35,000 in revenue from that. And that was me not knowing really what in the heck I was even doing. Joe had, I was one of Joe's clients at the time when he was working in the cleaning and restoration industry. And I had added a website to what I did in that business as just a simple way to expand what I was doing and not just serve a local market, because I was just excited. Like, wouldn't it be cool if I could serve, people nationwide and even worldwide with my local cleaning and restoration business? And we got that website where I was producing about $12,000 a month in revenue. And Joe was like, Kev, why don't you come down here to the annual event and just show everybody what you're doing with your website? Mm-hmm. And he's like, but before you do that, make sure you document what you do and how you do it, because there's going to be a certain percentage of people that you speak with that are just going to want more help with you. And so help from you, and make sure you have that available for those who want that. And there was no talk whatsoever between Joe and I about, we're going to crush it, we're going to make all this money. There was nothing like that. Joe had an audience of people. He was already doing an event, and he saw what I was doing as a way, like, you would be able to add value to this event. You would be able to share with people some stuff that is going to benefit them. And in return, by the way, Kevin, make sure you do this because I want to make this worth your while too, and stuff. And I would have never even thought of that. I would have, if he wanted me to come and share, I would have just come and shared. I wouldn't have offered anything.
Mhm.
And it's not like, Nick, I had never done a presentation in front of an audience. There was about 350 people there. Be quite honest, I was nervous as hell when I got down there. I mean, it sounded exciting talking on the phone with Joe months in advance, but when the reality got there and I was there at the event getting ready to take the stage, man, I was so doggone nervous because I'm like, I've never done this before. And what if these people don't like what I share? What if I let Joe down? You know, all of this BS running through my head. But once I got on the stage, I just started sharing. About 10 minutes in, I just started like calm down and relax. I'm like, wow, they're really engaged. They're liking this stuff. This is really cool, you know. And so that was my very first strategic partnership, and it unfolded completely organically because, you know, we were just having a conversation. Joe's like, you have something that is going to be of value for the people in attendance, and you should come and share.
Awesome. Also, what's the and we talk about this, and I want to hear your words because I'm like short to the point, and I'm not a good storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that doesn't always. I want to hear your take on this, but we jammed on this on the phone a little bit. We've talked about it a few times. I went to one of your events, and after dinner we just hung out and jammed on some stuff. But there's this concept of currency, right?
Yeah.
And we, especially when we're B2B, we just make this assumption that everybody's operating in money.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that you understand that has become more apparent to me, and it's become more intuitive through just repetition, is that if I want to work with you and I want you to refer to me, we might have different currencies, right? And one of the biggest things we can do as a strategic partner, and I'm curious what your take on this, but this actually comes from our conversation, is can I give you more of the currency that you value? And in return, you give me the currency that I value, right? Like maybe it might be reputation for me, clients for you, right? Which is something like this. This is like, hey, look, I got a reputation. I'm hanging out with Kevin Thompson, and you get clients from it. Boom, we got what we wanted. But I think it's really, if you could talk about the currency and how to identify what currency we're actually dealing in, so we don't just try to offer everybody commission.
Sure. Yeah. And, you know, and I, you know, there's a guy, Brad Spencer, who shared this with me, and he actually got it from our mutual friend, Travis Sago. And it's a thing called timer. And timer is an acronym for the 5 currencies. And those 5 currencies are time. I'm just kind of going slow, so people might want to write this down. Time, identity, reputation, energy. So time, identity, money, energy, and reputation. So that's what timer is. And so, you know, so many people in the business world, they think that money is the most valuable currency to an entrepreneur, and it's not. It's not, especially established entrepreneurs. So I'll give you an example. One of the guys that I had the opportunity to connect and become a partner with was a guy by the name of Bill Harris, who owns a company called Centerpoint Research Institute, and he's since passed away now. But the first time I ever partnered with him back in 2011, and we got connected by a mutual friend of ours. Bill has an established company, and if I would have started talking with Bill about, you know, hey, Bill, I got this great thing and you should promote me to all of your people because we can make all this money together, he would have shut me down cold, because like he doesn't need help creating more revenue. I mean, you know, he certainly doesn't need that help from me. But by getting to talk with Bill a little bit and find out about him and who he was, and then, you know, I mean, Nick, you and I have just done the same exact thing, which is what got us here. Is, you know, he had an audience of people. He found out what I was up to, and he's like, wow, Kevin, you know what's so cool about what you're doing is the stuff that you teach is the same exact stuff that we use to build Centerpoint Research Institute. And so he's like, I know how valuable this stuff is. He's like, I just haven't been sharing all this stuff with my folks. And he's like, we need to get you in front of my folks. And so we did. And that's how we started that whole relationship. But so we need to find out, just by asking some series of questions of people, what their most valuable currency is. And like you mentioned, reputation. And for most entrepreneurs, that is their most valuable currency. Because Nick, you're not going to put me in front of your folks if you thought for a second that I would damage the reputation that you have worked so hard to create with them over the time that you've done that. I mean, that would be a non-issue. That would be a deal killer right there. Mm-hmm. And so, and it doesn't matter how much revenue you can make, it's completely irrelevant. And so we've got to find out what someone's most valuable currency is and speak to that. And it's not, hey, we should do this thing together, or you should, I'll pay you for referrals. I mean, that's the wrong messaging. And 99% of the cases, it's the wrong messaging, because that's not what people's most valuable currency is.
Yeah, that's awesome. I am a reputation and energy.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two things that I will protect at all costs.
Yes.
So anybody that wants to partner, you better improve my reputation or save me energy. Time is whatever. I got all the time in the world. It's just energy conservation for me, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now that people's wheels are turning, what are the mistakes? What are the pitfalls? What are the things we are most likely to goof up as we get into strategic partnering and reaching out to people and starting to try to build these relationships?
Yeah. Well, the first one is, and the biggest one is what we were just talking about, talking with potential partners about the wrong currency, which is typically money, but another big mistake is thinking that using strategic partnerships, has to be this painful process, or that it requires these long-term commitments or contracts. Now, it can, involve contracts and stuff, but in all of the hundreds of strategic partnerships I've done over the years, everything has been done on a handshake other than two of them. And there were two partners that just wanted to, put a contract together because they just wanted to be able to spell out, who was going to do what and all of that kind of stuff. And so I obliged with that. But right or wrong, and I know I have an attorney and they do cringe a little bit about this, that I just do everything on a handshake. But that's how I've been doing it for years. But people think they're like, oh, do we have to form a legal entity? And I'm like, no, this is as simple as what Nick and I are doing right now, is that we had a conversation and I suggested to Nick, hey, maybe we should do something together. He agreed. Here we are. There's been no contract. Heck, we haven't even had any kind of discussion about revenue or nothing. And that's how this goes most of the time, because we are focusing on the content, on the currency that is most important to Nick, which, as he said, is reputation and energy. Another big mistake is thinking that you can fail at this, or that you're going to somehow damage relationships. So people have come to me and say, I've had a guy that I've been working with for a while, and at one point, early on in our discussion, he was like, Kevin, he's like, you know what? He's like, I have relationships going back 10 years. And he's like, some of those people, they are in a perfect position to be able to help me grow my business, because they have in their audience, in their business, the ideal client for what I have to offer. But here's my big concern is that, what if we do something together and we end up getting less than the results that we'd hoped for? Now my big concern is that now that relationship that I've had, is going to somehow be damaged. And that he's like, I'm just not willing to risk that. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I appreciate you sharing that. Are you open to, some insight? And I was like, and he's like, yeah. And I just told him, I said, what, here's the thing. Whenever you're doing any strategic partnership together with anybody, only one of three things can possibly happen. You're going to get the results that you'd hoped for, you're going to get less than the results you'd hoped for, or you're going to get better than the results you'd hope for. So already right out of the gate, you've got a 66% chance or better at getting results you'd hope for or more. Now, here's the thing. When both of you put your best foot forward, when both of you are excited about doing what you do together, when both of you are, just really engaged in this whole process, let's say that you do whatever it is that you do together. And when he's talking about results, he was talking about money. And I was like, you're focusing on the money piece of it as far as the results, that's going to somehow damage relationships. But if your focus is on, I'm going to help this person with these other currencies too, and no matter what, I can do that. I can help them increase their relationship capital. I can help them, I'm going to make this nice and easy on them. I'm going to make this fun and an enjoyable experience for my partner in this. I'm going to deliver value to their people no matter what. When you do that, and both of you have gone through this, do you think that even for a second, that your relationship with that person is going to somehow be damaged? And he was like, man, Kim, now that you bring it up that way, no. In fact, no matter what happens, the relationship is going to be further. And I'm like, you're dang right it will be. And I was like, so you cannot fail at this. Now, you might not get clients, you might not, you might not create the revenue that you want, but you are definitely not going to damage any relationships with anybody. You're going to further relationships with your partners, and you're going to make them look good. You're going to help them further their relationship with their people, all of that kind of stuff. And so, the idea of that, thinking that you can fail somehow at doing strategic partnerships, you can't when you look at it and when you focus on the right context. Another big mistake is feeling that you have to chase down potential partners. I don't do any chasing. I don't do any chasing at all. I just have conversations with people, find out what they're up to, find out what they're working on, and find out how I can be of service to them and to their people. That's all I'm doing. We're not chasing anybody down here. And the fifth big mistake that so many people make is not capitalizing on every strategic partnership that you do. Meaning that, we have we're doing what we do here today, Nick. And like I said, my goal is to, have all of these things happen as a result of what we're doing. And of course, after the fact, I'm going to have a conversation with you and find out, okay, how did that go? What about that went really well? What about that could I improve upon? And who else do you know that I should be having a conversation with? Who else do you know that might have an audience of people that I can help just by doing what I do? And this is how I've been able to keep things going and do so many, hundreds of strategic partnerships over the last decade is not by chasing people down. It's just by me being me, delivering value to people, giving my partners a great experience, giving their people a great experience, and then just saying, hey, who else do you know that I should be having a conversation with? It's that simple.
That's awesome. And it is. It's I know people that spend a lot of time spinning their wheels, overcomplicating a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's some of the best. We do a lot of trainings. That is some of the just simplest, most actionable advice right there is provide value and then ask who else might benefit.
It's simple.
So we talk about strategic partners, right? And this is a tough question because I know the answer is depends, but it depends. But let's talk about the value. Let's talk about the currency that if, let's say, strategic partnership is going to replace potentially another acquisition channel that is not working. We're putting time and effort into it. It's not working. What is a typical strategic partnership, or what's the potential from the currency side, from the actual money, the revenue?
Sure. Sure. And you're right. It really does depend on, who you are, what your business model is, what the price points are. So there's a whole lot of variables there. But I can give you an example, for me in my own life, as you mentioned, we've done 16.1 million solely from strategic partnerships over the last decade. And like, I'll give you an example, one of our clients, you know her, Nick, Susan, she's a client we've been working with, and her very first strategic partnership was worth $25,000 to her. based on her business, the value that she has to offer, the price point she charged. We've actually helped her get 2 clients at that. And one of those clients has already renewed with her, which I'm not at liberty to say what the dollar amount was, but I can tell you that it's worth a whole lot more than the initial $25,000. They've engaged her for long-term at a much higher level of service that she had to decide, do I want to deliver? And if so, how do I want to deliver this so that I can fit in with have this fit in with the lifestyle that I want to live? Because she's got certain things she's looking at that as far as that goes as well. We've got another guy who has done a partnership recently where he is in front of his partner's audience. I believe it's at least every quarter, and maybe even more often than that, where they're putting him in front of their audience at a live event. And his big challenge right now, and his upfront offer is at a $5,000 investment. And his biggest challenge right now, because of this one partnership, is he's got too many clients coming in. And so that's the challenge that he's dealing with right now. But at $5,000, his challenge right now is not new client acquisition. He's got that handled from one partner. Now that will taper off, and he knows that. But he is now looking as this does taper off down the road here, and it gets more of a consistency to it. He does want to do more partnerships like that. And he's also looking at how can he put things in place internally to be able to handle the additional lead flow that's coming in now from this. So there's, like I said, there is a whole lot of variables, but if you have an offering that is, especially if it's, in the $5,000 range or more, this is something that is really worth considering, because when we're talking at an offering at that kind of price point, that we talked earlier about the trust building process. Well, all this is going to do, it's going to shorten that trust building process window from whatever it is now to much shorter. And when you're at that level and above, this is something that is a very viable option for you to use as far as helping grow and expand your business.
Yeah. And I could tell anybody listening, if you follow us, we are knee deep in everything, simply because we work intimately with people in about 23 different industries. And we run traffic for people in this industry, like knee deep in everything. And what I see for most of my clients in my own business is doubling and tripling down on strategic partnership. Mm-hmm. It really is the lowest hanging fruit. And most of our people are high ticket, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
That being said, again, wheels turn and everybody's watching. Somebody, you have a client that's getting so many referrals from a strategic partner that they have to revamp their systems and operations and all that stuff. Where do you find a referral partner like that? Where are they people with massive audiences? Are they people that are buying whatever people buy before they buy your thing? Who are the best potential strategic partners to start having conversations with?
Okay. Yeah, they could be people with massive audiences. We don't necessarily need people with massive audiences. We're more concerned with partners who have the right audience, who are most receptive to our skill sets and what we have to offer, what we bring to the table for them. So we don't necessarily need big, large audiences of thousands of people. And typically, like the gentleman we were just talking about, you get an influx of too many clients, and that you're not prepared for that. Now, if you're offering informational kind of stuff where you've got systems in place and can deliver a lot of that, okay, cool, you can bring on lots of clients at once. But if there's a service aspect to it, that's something to consider as well. And you're not necessarily looking for lots of clients, you're looking for more of the right clients. So let me just kind of go through some examples of potential strategic partners. So it's going to be people like entrepreneurs who have audiences of your ideal client. It could be podcast hosts. Now, I'm also going to, with podcast hosts, we've got some of our clients who we are tasked with helping them get on podcasts, on Right Fit podcasts. And they do have stipulations that they want, like they might say, okay, I don't want to be on a new podcast where it's, like they only have a couple of episodes. I don't want to be on a podcast that doesn't have, a following of a certain size or what have you. And I totally get that. But I also want to keep in mind too, that in many cases, the podcast hosts themselves could be good clients for you. So don't overlook that piece either. Mastermind hosts, I've got a good number of my friends who run mastermind groups, and they're looking, they're continually looking for great speakers to come in and share with their mastermind hosts. And keep in mind, this is not a sales kind of a talk. Okay, this is a talk where, kind of like what Nic and I are doing right now, where you are here to share of yourself, share your expertise, and so that the right people can come to the conclusion on their own that, like, you know what, this person might be able to help me because I'm dealing with these issues and I could maybe use your help. And so, mastermind hosts are another great source of potential strategic partners. Seminar hosts. Like in the example that I shared with you, my very first partnership with Joe Polish, he had me come speak at his annual seminar and stuff. Industry associations are another potential source of strategic partners. Training companies, SaaS companies, service as a software companies that and other software providers that serve the entrepreneurial space. Another great source of potential partners and stuff. And of course, other service providers. Outside of that, other service providers that, offer services and resources and tools to groups of entrepreneurs. So that's just some examples of potential strategic partners that you would want to consider collaborating with.
Awesome. There's I think we get a little myopic because we kind of play in our own ecosystems. There are, like, I love that you said SaaS companies and software providers.
Mm-hmm.
We're working with one, project-management.com. They have insane amounts of organic traffic for people looking with help managing large projects, right? So they're going to be companies. They're mostly construction companies.
Okay.
Right. This falls right in the people we can help. But not many people in the internet marketing world or this world would even consider that a software provider has tens or hundreds of thousands of the users of the software.
That's right. That's right. I got a friend of mine who has a Facebook group specifically for founders of SaaS companies. He's got 14,000 members in that group. There's a whole lot of software companies out there and a whole lot of them that serve the entrepreneurial market. So
yeah, that's awesome. So how do we, I think it's very natural. It's very natural for me. I think it's very natural for you. How do we connect with these people in a way that's doesn't feel spammy, or how do we just start these conversations?
Yeah. I reach out to entrepreneurs all the time, and it is like so doggone simple, Nic. And you've got a message like this from me, where I just said, hey, you know what? I'm working on something kind of cool, and I'd appreciate getting your feedback on this. Can we set aside 10 or 15 minutes to have a conversation? That's it. Yep. That is it. And, I remember I sent a message like that to you, Nic, at some point along the line, and you and I had that conversation. And you know what? I learned that technique from one of my other friends, Travis, again. And you know what? It is the simplest thing in the world to do, but most people go into that with an agenda. Mm-hmm. And I go into something like that with nothing more than my entire agenda is I just want to share what I'm working on, what I'm doing, what I'm up to, and I want to figure out how I can be of service to that person that I'm talking with, whether we ever do anything together or not. I don't care. Because coming from that standpoint, just by letting more and more people know what I'm working on and finding out what they're working on as well, and figuring out how I can help them, which is typically by connecting them with somebody in my situation. But by just doing that, I have opened up so many conversations over the years, and that those conversations, whether they led to somebody partnering with me or not, was completely irrelevant. It just got the ball going. It got me thinking in that way. And now, once you start doing these partnerships on the back end, if you do this right, you'll be able to just keep on going and going and going, because one connection will lead to another, to another, to another, and you'll just be able to continue doing what you do as far as doing strategic partnerships.
Awesome. I love that. Hey, I'm working on something, especially if they're connected to you loosely. There's like a curiosity.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and then you're also realizing, you're not asking for, because, a busy entrepreneur, one of their most valuable assets is their time, and so you're not asking for much of their time. And it's also framed in the way where it lets them know that you would just appreciate their insight. They're going to give, they're going to have the opportunity to possibly help you, which, like most entrepreneurs, they like that. They want to have the opportunity. They want to give back to others as well. But the last thing they want is to have their time wasted. I'll tell you that. They don't want to have their time wasted. And when you're asking for 10 to 15 minutes or whatever you're asking for as far as their time, be very cognizant of that. Don't let it roll into 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. Be very cognizant of that and respect their time, and you do that, and you'll be able to get more of their time down the road too. So
yeah, absolutely. We've had some lengthy conversations. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I was already sold. I'm sold 10 times on strategic partnerships. It's something that I've done naturally, but don't have a process or a system for it, right? So say, okay, look, you're going to build a process, a system, and you're going to actually put effort into strategic partnerships. How do you know you're ready? Like, what are the foundational things, like a conversion process of sorts?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's the first thing. If to really be ready for strategic partnerships, you want to, you need to already have a process and a system that gets you new clients. You don't want to be going to street. I don't want to say you don't want to go to, using strategic partnerships if you don't have a process, but you certainly don't want to be going out, using strategic partnerships with people you're meeting that you don't already have a really close relationship with and trying to test your process out. Now, that being said, I have built relationship capital with people in my life where I was trying something new and I was just excited about it. I wanted to try doing this thing. And I said to somebody, hey, would you be willing to help me out with this? And they did. But that was somebody that I already had a relationship with. But if you're going to start using strategic partnerships and reaching out to people that you don't have a relationship with yet, you want to make sure you've already got a process that gets you new clients. You have a process that converts, prospects to clients. You also need to have a track record of getting results for your clients, because if you can sell your stuff on the front end, but you are not good at delivering results for the clients you're going to get, all that strategic partnerships are going to do is quickly expand on that message, get you out there in a much bigger way, and let a whole lot of people find out that you can't deliver. So you don't want to have that be the situation. You want to make sure that you're already delivering great results for your clients and stuff. And those are the two main things. But beyond that, it's having the right message, the right time, and the right follow-up. Now you may not have those three pieces in place right now. You may have been reaching out to people and going, hey, I'd be happy to compensate you for referring us business and that kind of stuff. And if you've been doing that, that doesn't really work. That's not the right message. You need to have the right message for reaching out to strategic partnerships, and we've talked about that a little bit. You need to have the right timing, and I'm going to give you a little insight on this. When it comes to timing, it is always the right time to be the hero for somebody. It's always the right time to be of service to somebody. It's always the right time to help someone else. Okay. When Nick and I were talking about doing, something together, it was not from the point of Nick, hey, Nick, you should promote me. You should put me in front of your folks. It's like, no, what do you feel your folks would get value from this? Do you feel, and we didn't I didn't say specifically, hey, would this help further your relationship? No, if he feels his folks are going to get value from this, then we know that the relationship is going to be furthered then. And then, of course, like I said, the right follow-up, and we touched on that as well. Don't even start doing strategic partnerships if you're not going to follow up with the partners that you start collaborating with, because that's how you're going to keep that momentum going. Once you get the momentum going, it's really easy to keep it going if you have these core things in process. You have a process that gets you new clients. You have a track record of getting great results. You're not going to have any problem finding additional strategic partners once you get the process and once you get the momentum going.
So the conversion process and a track record, obviously, nobody wants to refer to somebody that doesn't get results.
Yep.
And being committed to follow up.
Yes.
With those in place, those are the clients that you take, right? And those are the people you help them craft their message, and then do you work identifying the ideal partners, getting them in contact, how to leverage them? If somebody comes and they have all the pieces in place, what does your process working with you look like, and what's the sequence of steps or events?
Yep. So I learned long ago that putting a product out on around this is not the way to go. I started doing that years ago, and I'm like, you know what? This is not what I want to do with this. I just like working one-on-one with clients. And so I just work with a handful of clients at any given time outside of, the work we do with the Relationship Accelerator Network. But that's exactly what we do. Is I will look at what you do, what your process is right now, your track record of getting great results for your clients. I will help you craft your message. I'll help you, locate and identify your ideal strategic partners. And when it makes sense, I will even help you connect with your ideal strategic partners. And that's in the simplest of terms, that's all I do. And I tell you that, and what I tell people is, if you meet the criteria that we just mentioned, we just talked about, all you got to do is just shoot me a message on Facebook or shoot me an email, and I'll ask you a few more questions just to make sure that there's nothing stopping me from helping you. And assuming that, that is the case, after I hear back from you on those questions, then we can make time to have a conversation. We can just explore this and see if it makes sense to work together.
Awesome. And there's one more way, two things for everybody listening here. There's one more way. This one is not evergreen. So if you're listening to the replay, you might miss it. If you want to spend some time with Kevin and myself at the same time, we are doing a joint event. I believe it's the 6th and the 7th.
Yes, August 6th and 7th. Yep.
And I believe we're spending the 6th. We'll do something in the morning, breakfast, talk a little bit, and then we're on a boat. We're on a 65-foot boat, I think.
Yes, we are. My friend Michael is hosting this on his boat. Yes. So
we're spending the 6th, which is a Tuesday, I believe, on a boat, and then nice office space on Wednesday. So if you already work with me or you already work with Kevin, then you'll get an invite if you haven't been invited already. If you're interested in spending a couple of days in Seattle and just learning, I'll be talking about my decision-making process and strategic partnerships and all that stuff. Just shoot me a message or shoot Kevin a message. And if you want, again, if it sounds like strategic partnerships are the route that you want to go, I strongly suggest you reach out to Kevin. It's, as far as I can tell, success rate is sky high and people are having success. And I also think it's just most people have a ton of money, free time, and headache relief just hidden in plain sight. Mm-hmm. If they can just tap into the assets they have. So that is Kevin at maximum-response.com.
Yep, that email works. Yep.
Or just harass him on Facebook. And last thing, we're going to go, you can also comment here. I'll make sure he's in the group and can see if you tag him or comment. I'm just going to go dark on Facebook, which means we're going to end the live Facebook feed. And we are just going to stay on Zoom. And if any members have any direct questions, want to respect Kevin's time, say, hey, I'm in this industry. Do you have any quick hit suggestions, or do you see any way that you can help me? We'll have those conversations. So if you're in the vault or you're in the network, there's a link to join on the front page of the vault as soon as you log in. And we're going to go dark on Facebook.